Welcome back. I just finished uploading, it's still uploading. I was thinking to get a break, but let's just continue. But I need few minutes to move my stuff around. So it's kind of Black Monday today. The stock market have dropped a lot in Asia, Japan, Asia now has dropped a lot in Europe. But it's soon at 3 p.m. and the stock market in New York open. I think it opened 9 a.m. in the morning. No, it's 3 p.m. my country. I think I'm six hours in front of New York. So let's, but I need few minutes. No, it's 2:30 p.m. So I did finish Virginia. Let's read history of Virginia. And when I start reading Virginia, I think, okay, I know I don't like to open 100 more web pages because it will take me many weeks to read it. But now I open more, so I have to take a look what I did open now. Then I will read the history of Virginia. So, but I need to take a fast look what I did open and maybe move it around a little bit. So that's Virginia. We need to find, okay, that's North Virginia. We could read this. We could read North Virginia. I will put it on my list now. Northern Virginia. I think the Northern Virginia is a little bit more expensive area, but I think the Washington DC, the capital in United States, I forgot that. I was wondering why Pentagon is in Virginia, why CIA in Virginia. That's because Washington DC, that's the capital in United States. So we need to read about Washington DC, but I'm not finished writing. But they have good rail connections. You can take rail, the Amtrak. You have good rail connections to like Philadelphia and New York City. And maybe south down to Florida. They have good rail connection this East Coast. So I think New York, that's Virginia State. Across Virginia and Maryland, but I think it is not part of any state. I think No, I think Washington DC is not part of any state. I don't know. I know that when we read it later. But let's read this. Then I can look my papers later. I just need to look what I did open. I just need a minute. So we have Virginia. But let's just read because I start to get tired now.
Northern Virginia. Nova redirects here. For other uses of Nova, see Nova, disambiguation. Northern Virginia, locally referred to as Nova or Nova, comprises several counties and independent cities in the Commonwealth of Virginia in the United States. The region radiates westward and southward from Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, and has a population of 3,257,133 people as of 2023 U.S. Census Bureau estimates, representing over a third of the state's total population. It is the most populous region in both Virginia and the regional Washington metropolitan area. Communities in the region form the Virginia portion of the Washington metropolitan area and the larger Washington-Baltimore metropolitan area. Northern Virginia has a significantly larger job base than either Washington, D.C. or the Maryland portion of its suburbs, and is the highest income region of Virginia, with several of the highest income counties in the nation, including 3 of the 10 highest counties for median household income, according to the 2019 American Community Survey. Northern Virginia's transportation infrastructure includes 2 major airports, Ronald Reagan Washington National and Dulles International Airport, several lines of the Washington Metro subway system, the Virginia Railway Express suburban commuter rail system, transit bus services, bicycle sharing and bicycle lanes and trails, and an extensive network of interstate highways and expressways. The Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense and the world's second largest office, is located in Arlington County in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia also houses the George Bush Center for Intelligence, the headquarters for the Central Intelligence Agency in Langley, the United States Patent and Trademark Office in Alexandria, and several large companies, including several major aerospace manufacturing, consulting firms, and defense industry, which serve it and other components of the U.S. federal government. Tourist attractions in Northern Virginia include various memorials, museums, and colonial and Civil War era sites, including Arlington National Cemetery, Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania National Military Park, Manassas National Battlefield Park, Mount Vernon, the National Museum of the Marine Corps, the National Museum of the United States Army, the Udvar-Hazy Center of the National Air and Space Museum, and the United States Marine Corps War Memorial. Other attractions include portions of the Appalachian Trail, Great Falls Park, Old Town Alexandria, Prince William Forest Park, and portions of Shenandoah National Park. Etymology, edit. The region is sometimes spelled Northern Virginia, but the U.S. Geological Survey's Correspondence Handbook states that the N in Northern Virginia should be capitalized since it is a place name rather than a direction or general area. The name Northern Virginia does not seem to have been used in the early history of the area. According to Johnston, some early documents and land grants refer to the Northern Neck of Virginia, a reference to the Northern Neck and describing an area that began at the western shore of the Chesapeake Bay and includes a territory that extended west, including all the land between the Potomac and Rappahannock rivers, with a western boundary called the Fairfax Line. The Fairfax Line, surveyed in 1746, ran from the first spring of the Potomac River, which remains marked today by the Fairfax Stone, to the first spring of the Rappahannock River, at the head of the Conway River. The northern neck was composed of 5,282,000 acres, 21,380 kilometers, and was larger in area than 5 of the modern U.S. states. This monument, at the head spring of the Potomac River, marks one of the historic spots of America. Its name is derived from Thomas Lord Fairfax, who owned all the land lying between the Potomac and Rappahannock rivers. The first Fairfax stone, marked FX, was set in 1746 by Thomas Lewis, a surveyor employed by Lord Fairfax. This is the base point for the western dividing line between Maryland and West Virginia. Fairfax stone inscription. Early development of the northern portion of Virginia was in the easternmost area of that early land grant, which encompasses the modern counties of Lancaster, Northumberland, Richmond, and Westmoreland. At some point, these eastern counties came to be called separately simply the Northern Neck, and, for the remaining area west of them, the term was no longer used. By some definitions, King George County is also included in the Northern Neck, which is now considered a separate region from Northern Virginia. One of the most prominent early mentions of Northern Virginia as a title was the naming of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia during the American Civil War, 1861-1865. Definition, edit. The most common definition of Northern Virginia includes the independent cities and counties on the Virginia side of the Washington-Baltimore-Arlington, D.C. MDVAWV PAR combined statistical area as defined by the U.S. Office of Management and Budget within the Executive Office of the President of the United States. Northern Virginia includes 6 counties: Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, Spotsylvania and Stafford counties, and 6 independent cities: Alexandria, Fairfax, Falls Church, Fredericksburg, Manassas, and Manassas Park. History, edit. Colonial period, edit. Further information, Colony of Virginia. The colony of Virginia was settled at Jamestown in 1607. The area now generally regarded as Northern Virginia was within a larger area defined by a land grant from King Charles II of England on the 18th of September, 1649, while the monarch was in exile in France during the English Civil War. 8 of his loyal supporters were named, among them Thomas Culpeper. On the 25th of February, 1673, a new charter was given to Thomas Lord Culpeper and Henry Earl of Arlington. Lord Culpeper was named the Royal Governor of Virginia from 1677 to 1683. Culpeper County was later named for him when it was formed in 1749, however, history does not seem to record him as one of the better of Virginia's colonial governors. Although he became governor of Virginia in July 1677, he did not come to Virginia until 1679, and even then seemed more interested in maintaining his land in the northern neck of Virginia than governing. He soon returned to England. In 1682, rioting in the colony forced Culpeper to return. By the time he arrived, however, the riots were already quelled. After apparently misappropriating £9,500 from the treasury of the colony, he returned to England and the king was forced to dismiss him. During this tumultuous time, Culpeper's erratic behavior meant that he had to rely increasingly on his cousin and Virginia agent, Colonel Nicholas Spencer. Spencer succeeded Culpeper as acting governor following Culpeper's departure. Culpeper's descendants allowed Robert King Carter and other Virginians to manage the properties. In 1736, Legal claim to the land was finally established by Culpeper's grandson, Thomas Fairfax, 6th Lord Fairfax of Cameron, who became known in the colony as Lord Fairfax, following a survey authorized by Governor William Gooch. The lands of Lord Fairfax and Northern Virginia were geographically defined as the land between the Rappahannock and Potomac rivers, and were officially called the Northern Neck. In 1746, a backline was surveyed and established between the headwaters of the Potomac and Rappahannock rivers, defining the west end of the grants. According to documents held by the Handley Regional Library of the Winchester-Frederick County Historical Society, the grant of 5,282,000 acres, 21,380 kilometers, included 22 modern counties, including Northumberland, Lancaster, Westmoreland, Stafford, King George, Prince William, Fairfax, Loudoun, Fauquier, Rappahannock, Culpeper, Madison, Clark, Warren, Page, Shenandoah, and Frederick counties in Virginia, and Hardy, Hampshire, Morgan, Berkeley, and Jefferson counties in West Virginia. Lord Fairfax was a lifelong bachelor, and became one of the more well-known persons of the late colonial era. In 1742, the new county formed from Prince William County was named Fairfax County in his honor, one of several locations in Northern Virginia and West Virginia's eastern panhandle named after him. Lord Fairfax established his residence at his brother's home at Beaver on the grounds of present-day Fort Beaver in Fairfax County. He later built a hunting lodge named Greenway Court, which was located near White Post in Clark County near the Blue Ridge Mountains, and moved there. Around 1748, he George Washington, who was then 16 years old. Impressed with Washington's energy and talents, he employed him to survey his lands west of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Lord Fairfax maintained neutrality as the American Revolutionary War began in 1775. Just a few weeks after the surrender of British Army troops under General Cornwallis at Yorktown, Fairfax died at his home at Greenway Court on the 9th of December, 1781, at the age of 90. He was entombed on the east side of Christ Church in Winchester. While his plans for a large house at Greenway Court never materialized, and his stone lodge is now gone, a small limestone structure he built remains on the site in his honor. Statehood and Civil War, edit. Following the American Revolutionary War, the 13 colonies formed the United States of America, and Continental Army Commander and Virginian George Washington became the new nation's first president. Prior to the Revolutionary War, Washington was a surveyor and developer of canals that were used for transportation. He was also a proponent of the bustling port city of Alexandria, located on the Potomac River below the fall line, not far from his plantation at Mount Vernon in Fairfax County. During much of the colonial era and from 1790 to 1800, the nation's capital was in Philadelphia. In 1800, however, with Washington's guidance and support, the new federal city of present-day Washington, D.C. was laid out and established for the purpose of serving as the national capital. The region straddled the Potomac River and was located on a square of territory ceded to the federal government by Maryland and Virginia. Alexandria, a port city at the time, was on the eastern edge south of the river. On the outskirts on the northern side of the river, was Georgetown, another port city. As the federal city grew, land in the portion contributed by Maryland proved best suited and adequate for early development. Not really part of the functioning federal city, citizens in Alexandria, who lacked voting input, were frustrated by the laws of the district's government. Slavery also arose as a contentious issue. In 1846, to mitigate these issues and as part of abolishing slave trading in the district, The U.S. Congress passed a bill retroceding to Virginia the area south of the Potomac River, which was then Alexandria County. That area now forms all of present-day Arlington County, which was renamed from Alexandria County in 1922, and a portion of the independent city of Alexandria. Slavery, states' rights, and economic issues increasingly divided the northern and southern states during the first half of the 19th century, eventually leading to the American Civil War, which lasted from 1861 to 1865. Although Maryland was a slave state, it remained with the Union, while Virginia seceded and joined the newly formed Confederate States of America, whose capital was established at Richmond. The U.S. Supreme Court has never issued a firm opinion on whether the retrocession of the Virginia portion of the District of Columbia was constitutional. In the 1875 case of Phillips v. Payne, the Supreme Court held that Virginia had de facto jurisdiction over the area returned by Congress in 1847, and dismissed the tax case brought by the plaintiff. The court, however, did not rule on the core constitutional matter of the retrocession. Writing the majority opinion, Justice Noah Swain stated only that the plaintiff in error is stopped from raising the point which he seeks to have decided. He cannot, under the circumstances, vicariously raise a question, nor force upon the parties to the compact an issue which neither of them desires to make. With barely 160 kilometers, separating the two capital cities, Northern Virginia found itself in the center of much of the conflict, which inflicted destruction and bloodshed. The Army of Northern Virginia was the primary army for the Confederate States of America in the East. Owing to the region's proximity to Washington, D.C., and the Potomac River, the armies of both sides frequently occupied and traversed Northern Virginia. As a result, several battles were fought in the area. Northern Virginia was the operating area of John Singleton Mosby, a Confederate partisan, and several small skirmishes were fought throughout the region between his Rangers and Federal forces occupying Northern Virginia. Following the end of the Civil War, the conflict remained popular among the region's residents, and many area schools, roads, and parks were named for Confederate generals and statesmen, including Jefferson Davis Highway, Washington Lee High School, and others. Virginia split during the American Civil War, as was foreshadowed by the 17th of April, 1861, Virginia Secession Convention. 50 counties in the western, mountainous portion of the state were largely opposed to secession in 1861. This region broke away from the Confederacy in 1863 and entered the Union as a new state, West Virginia. Unlike the eastern part of the state, West Virginia did not have fertile lands tilled by slaves and was geographically separated from the state government in Richmond by the Appalachian Mountains. During this process, a provisional government of Virginia was headquartered in Alexandria, which was under Union control during the war. Arlington, Clark, Fairfax, Frederick, Loudoun, Shenandoah, and Warren counties voted in favor of Virginia remaining in the Union in 1861, but eventually broke away from the state. As a result of West Virginia's formation, part of Lord Fairfax's colonial land grant, which defined Northern Virginia, was ceded in the establishment of that state in 1863. Now known as the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, the area includes Berkeley County and Jefferson County in West Virginia. 20th century, edit. The Department of Defense's increasing reliance on information technology companies during the Cold War was influential in launching the modern Northern Virginia economy and spurred urban development throughout the region. After end of the Cold War in 1991, prosperity continued in the region as it positioned itself as the Silicon Valley of the eastern United States. The Internet was first commercialized in Northern Virginia, which served as the headquarters of many of the first Internet service providers. The first major interconnection point of the Internet, MAEAST, was established in the 1990s in Ashburn after Virginia area network provider operators decided to connect their networks. This infrastructure legacy is ongoing, as data center operators continue to expand near these facilities. 21st century, edit. In early 2001, local internet company AOL bought Time Warner, the world's largest traditional media company, near the end of the dot-com bubble era. After the internet bubble buzz, however, Northern Virginia office vacancy rates increased from 2% in 2000 to 20% in 2002. After 2002, vacancy rates improved, falling below 10% as defense spending increased following the 11th of September attacks. The subsequent Afghanistan and Iraq wars also contributed to the region's growth, as the federal government increased its contracting with private defense firms. Regional organizations, edit. Northern Virginia Regional Commission, edit. The Northern Virginia Regional Commission, NVRC, is a regional government that represents a regional council of 13-member Northern Virginia local governments. These local governments include the counties of Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William. The local governments include the incorporated cities of Alexandria, Fairfax, Falls Church, Manassas, and Manassas Park. The local governments also include the incorporated towns of Dumfries, Herndon, Leesburg, and Vienna. NVRC's chief roles and functions are providing information, performing professional and technical services for its members, and serving as a mechanism for regional coordination regarding the environment, transportation, affordable housing, community planning, military, and human services. Programs and projects address a wide array of local government interests. According to Virginia's Regional Cooperation Act, NVRC is a political subdivision. The region is technically referred to as Virginia's Planning District #8. The Commission was established pursuant to Articles 1 and 2, Chapter 34, of the Acts of the Virginia General Assembly of 1968, subsequently revised and reenacted as the Regional Cooperation Act. Any incorporated county, city, or town in Northern Virginia with a population exceeding 3,500 that adopts NVRC's charter agreement is eligible to become a member of the Commission. Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, edit. Main article, Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. Northern Virginia constitutes a considerable portion of the population and number of jurisdictions that comprise the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, MCOG. Founded in 1957, MCOG is a regional organization of 22 Washington area local governments, as well as area members of the Maryland and Virginia state legislatures, the U.S. Senate, and the U.S. House of Representatives. MCOG provides a forum for discussion and the development of regional responses to issues regarding the environment, transportation, public safety, homeland security, affordable housing, community planning, and economic development. The National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board, a component of MCOG, is the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for the metropolitan Washington area, including Northern Virginia. Demographics, edit. As of April 2020 there were 3,197,076 people in Northern Virginia, approximately 37% of the state's population. These population counts include all counties within Virginia that are part of the Washington-Arlington-Alexandria, DCVAMDWV Metropolitan Statistical Area or the Washington-Baltimore-Arlington, DCMDVAW. The PAR combined statistical area as defined by the U.S. Office of Management and Budget within the Executive Office of the President of the United States. Of the 3,159,639 people in Northern Virginia in the 2019 estimates, 2,000,000